Sebastian Salas are both Manchester City and Liverpool in action in the Carabao Cup. Steve Nicol and Julian Laurent will join us to break down those games. Let's start in Budapest, the UEFA Super Cup. Bayern Munich 2-1 winners over Sevilla in extra time. Congratulations to all of you who had Javi Martinez getting the game winner. We're joined now by Derek Ray and Frank. Frank, this is a rare moment, a game in which Bayern Munich were actually tested. What did you think of the match?
I really enjoyed the match. I think it was a real game. I have to congratulate the two teams because they gave 200%, up and down, and they work very hard physically. And I enjoy because we see so many actions. We saw two teams wanted to score if we had to wait the overtime. So I don't know if we can say that Bayern Munich deserved to win because maybe they are no end. I enjoyed, and I'm pleased with the result because I think it's nice to see Bayern Munich still winning. But I overall enjoyed the entire game. Yeah.
Derek, right, I mentioned it. Javi Martinez, the game winner. I know you know everything about the Bundesliga, but if you call this, I'm going to need to see some proof. What happened? Like a week ago, he's training on the side, about to head back to Bilbao, and here he is, the hero.
Yeah, I didn't have Javi Martinez as one of the keepers to be somebody who we would be talking about in the aftermath of this Super Cup game. And he very likely will still be leaving the club. It remains to be seen exactly where he'll be going. There's been talk of China. There's been talk of his old club, Athletic Bilbao. But it just goes to show that you never know with Bayern. You never know who is going to step up. I go along with Frank. It was a good game. I think credit to Sevilla, but I would say that I think Bayern were better, and I think they created the chances. I think they did have the oomph in their game at times, although it wasn't Bayern 100% at their best, and maybe we shouldn't expect it to be. But Hansi Flick will take plenty from this because after the cakewalk against Schalke in the Bundesliga opener, it was a test. It will stand them in good stead.
We've been giving Sevilla a lot of credit, but Frank, did they expose any weaknesses in a Bayern team that for the last 2 or 3 weeks on this show, we've been pretty desperate to try and make up or find a weakness with Bayern? Oh, they're not deep enough. Did we see one in this match?
Not really. I think especially the first half where Sevilla did everything to disturb Bayern Munich, and they did because they pressed them very high. Ocampos was again surprising me because I saw him playing for Marseille and he became another player, bringing everything defensively but mostly offensively with his skills. And everybody worked very hard, and even the captain Navas, who you think physically is not at the top comparing to the German players, but he was, and they fought very hard. They played tactically very, very well. And again, you enjoyed the game because you have two teams willing to play offensively. I mean, it takes two to tango, and it's what happened today. I mean, you can think, well, it's not a very important silverware because it's only maybe something financial from UEFA to play. But I won that type of games. I mean, I was the underdog, Chelsea playing against Real Madrid, and it was a big game for us. So I guess for Sevilla was exactly the same. They had the chance to.
The Bayern Munich players, what's been the reaction, the build-up in Germany about this game? Because it does come at a very awkward time.
The build-up's actually been quite low-key, I think it's fair to say, and a lot of that has to do with the pandemic and the atmosphere surrounding it, and the fact that this game was staged in a high-risk area, and you had the situation before the game whereby politicians in Bavaria were telling fans that maybe it wasn't such a good idea to go to the game, even though they had tickets. So I don't think it will be a case of euphoria, but I think it will do an awful lot for confidence. Not that Bayern are low on confidence or anything like that. I mean, I think we're talking about a team that knows how good it is, that knows that maybe it has scope to be even better when you consider what we saw from Leroy Sané in his Bundesliga debut with Bayern against his old club Schalke last week. So nobody will be getting carried away because of this, but it's a strong signal that has been sent. Now, you might say, okay, for once Bayern found themselves in the situation where they weren't leading at the end of 90 minutes. Now, they won the trophy, but you've got to go back to the 9th of February against Leipzig, the 0-0 draw the last time, but they failed to win. I happened to be at that game. So it tells you about where Bayern have gone, the journey they have been on, and it's silverware, and they can take strength from that.
Derek, Frank just said that Manuel Neuer is still the best goalie in the world. There was a time when maybe that was in question. As far as UEFA Player of the Year, he's one of the 3 finalists, along with Kevin De Bruyne, Robert Lewandowski. Could you make a case for Neuer, not just obviously based on what we saw today, but all through the Champions League?
Undoubtedly. I mean, I think he's the best goalkeeper in the world. I think he's demonstrated that throughout the course of the season gone by. And here he is still going strong at a time when many were keen to write him off. And, you know, all about the debate at national team level. Neuer and Ter Stegen, and Marc-Andre Ter Stegen has said his bit when it's come to that. But that's sort of in the past now. Everybody knows that Neuer is a class apart from most goalkeepers, and I have no hesitation in saying, in my opinion, he's the best keeper in the world. Does that make him the best player in Europe? Again, he's got to be up there, and this year, when you look at the candidates and you look at Lewandowski, I would probably say that if I were voting, which I'm not, I don't have a vote on this, but my vote would probably go to Lewandowski on the back of 55 goals in all competitions, 34 in the Bundesliga, but Neuer is as good as you will see anywhere in the world when it comes to keepers.
Frank, you who love individual awards oh so much, who would you give the UEFA Player of the Year to? Neuer?
Well, because it's a job apart from other players, you know, I will give it to Neuer, because I think like that, yeah, I can communicate about that, because you know that I'm not terribly keen on that trophy, let's say individual trophy, as you said, because it doesn't mean anything. I mean, can you compare Lewandowski with Neuer? They don't play the same position and they don't take the same risks. So giving to a goalkeeper is once taking some risk about saying that football is not only about scoring goals, but it's also being able to be special even with your hands in a game that you have to play with your feet. So it would be nice to see Neuer being maybe nominated Player of the Year, because he is a big part of the Bayern success, meaning that tactically he has to play very high in order for Bayern to press high also on the field. And he played like a sweeper, and on top of it, it's crucial. Every time a striker or somebody comes in front of him, 1 against 1, I don't see him losing. And they need penalty to score goals. It says a lot about the quality of the goalkeeper.
Julian Laurent with us now, as is Stevie Nicol. Guys, some Carabao Cup third round action to discuss. Let's start, Stevie, with the 7-2 thrashing Liverpool over Lincoln City FC, as you would expect, and really this one done after just about the first half hour.
Yeah, it was kind of what was written on the tin. You know, Liverpool were just too slick, too quick, too clinical, and really showed that, well, they showed the difference between the two sides on the field, which sometimes we don't always see in the Carabao Cup. So it's a good performance. Listen, when you score a lot of goals, it always buoys everybody up, regardless of whether half the team wasn't playing or what. It's always good around the club when you've got plenty of goals in you. And all in all, it was a good night for Liverpool, no question.
Mentioned half the team wasn't playing there, Stevie. Jules, no front three for Liverpool, but no problem in this match.
No problem, and I think the idea was to qualify with playing some players that need to play and need to get some fitness, need to get good experience, like the youngster ones, like Rhys Williams, like Nico Williams. It's the debut for Tsimikas, it's a debut for Diogo Jota as well, and I think those games are very useful for that as well, for that purpose of giving game time to people like Minamino and Origi and Shaqiri, also giving experience to young players. Like we mentioned earlier, you could still have one half of Van Dijk, one half of Fabinho. You can rotate a bit more, and everybody goes home really happy. It's a 7-2 win, it's great. You move on to the next round, and then you keep that momentum as well for a big game on Monday night against Arsenal.
Stevie, Jules mentioned Fabinho. We've seen him as a centre half, we've seen him as a centre mid. Where is he more valuable to Liverpool?
I think right now it's at centre back. You know, Liverpool's line with Van Dijk and Gomez at the start of this season was absolutely horrendous. And Fabinho came in at the weekend against Chelsea. I still think the line was a little too high, but my goodness, it was far more solid. And Fabinho was asked the question a couple of times, one-on-one against Werner, and he came up trumps both times. So I would think right now Fabinho is certainly a lot more valuable to Liverpool as a centre-back, considering not just how they actually started this season, but the way they finished defensively last year as well. Something needed to be done, and I think Fabinho moving in there, probably not for the rest of his career, but certainly for the foreseeable future, would be a smart and good move for Liverpool.
If Liverpool were dominant, Manchester City certainly were not. It took a 75th minute game-winning goal from Phil Foden just to beat Bournemouth. Stevie, what happened to Manchester City in this match?
I mean, to be honest with you, they were dominant. I mean, they completely dominated everything that was going on in the game. They just couldn't break down Bournemouth. That was the big problem. Eventually they did. They got the win. That's all that matters. But again, you know, they played a lot of kids as well, and so you can understand against a quite an experienced Bournemouth side why they found it difficult. But they got the job done, and they got some. You know, Jules was talking about Liverpool getting players time on the field. That's exactly what they did, and so they win the game, and that's what the most important thing is. Certainly, they would like to have been a lot more comfortable, but you know what? Sometimes a little adversity goes a long way in the long run.
Hey, Jules, Eric Garcia and an academy product starting as your centre halves today for Manchester City. Why isn't Koulibaly or somebody on this team yet when it's such a glaring need and we're running out of time?
Because it's just, especially the Koulibaly deal is a very complicated deal to do, and I think they're still trying for it. I think very soon, if that one can't happen, they will have to then switch the focus to another of their target. Maybe Jules Koundé at Sevilla, maybe Jimenez at Atletico Madrid, whoever they want. But I think they need another body there. They need another centre-back. I think Eric Garcia will go as soon as Todibo has left Barcelona, and he wants to leave. He doesn't want to renew his deal at City, so there's no point for City to keep him anyway. So they need someone else, and I think, like you said, time is ticking. But make no mistake, they will have another centre-back by the end of the transfer window. Let's just find out who it is. It could still be Koulibaly, it could be someone else, but they know they need someone else, and they will find someone else for sure.
Stevie, they're the Premier League favourites. Do they need it, or Ake and Laporte good enough for City?
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about the bookies having them favourites.
Yes, that's what I meant. I know. For you.
Well, the fact that Jules is saying that they absolutely would be bringing another one in tells you that I don't think they're 100% sure that what they have right now is good enough. And Ake's only just had one game, and he was comfortable, but the opposition weren't particularly great. So he wasn't really tested. But you know, again, Laporte. Everybody hangs their hat on Laporte, but with his injuries and actually his form hasn't exactly been fantastic. So I don't think they're favourites, and they absolutely 100%. They need another centre back in there, and a proper centre back.
Thanks, guys. As we mentioned, Liverpool, Manchester City, each advancing in the Carabao Cup. Some interesting matchups, Liverpool and Arsenal in the round of 16. We could also be looking at a Spurs-Chelsea showdown in the Carabao Cup. Not exactly the best kept secret, but Chelsea finally have their man in goal, Edouard Mendy, coming over from Rennes to join the London club. 28-year-old Senegalese international. Back with us to discuss, Frank Leboeuf, Steve Nicol. Frank, on yesterday's show, Shaka was saying, and he is our resident goalie expert, take a minute, let this guy get a couple weeks, learn everybody's names before you throw him into the starting lineup. Do you agree?
Yeah, I followed what Shaka said. You know, it's true that when you come to another club, and especially a club from another country, you know, you have to learn the automatic words you have to say, like keeper, like get out, like some words that you have to say very quickly, and it has to become automatic. So I don't know if he can learn that in a week, in 10 days, in 3 weeks. But I don't agree with Shaka. I think if he's a great goalkeeper, he has to go straight away. We know that Kepa is out, and he has to leave the club. Caballero did some saves against Barnsley, so maybe deserved to play the next game. But I think Mendy has to come very quickly. I mean, Lampard doesn't trust either Caballero or Kepa, so Mendy should be the saver. And because Thiago Silva is coming to play now after his good game against Barnsley, and some others are coming back as well, I think it's time for Chelsea to have the best of the best. And Mendy, according to the fact that Chelsea bought him, is the best goalkeeper, and he has to play for me.
Stevie, from like a manager perspective, I guess it comes down to how desperate you are. Would you let Caballero handle it for another week, or would you go Mendy now if you were Frank Lampard?
Absolutely go Mendy. Listen, the guy's been playing, so he's sharp. It's not as if he's not played any games. And remember, it's West Brom. So, quite frankly, he's probably not going to have that much to do. I think absolutely you get him in. Listen, why wouldn't you? It makes no sense. You don't like either of the goalkeepers you've got. And as I said, it's West Brom. You get him in straight away. And I've got Shaq's going to rue the day he ever said he needs to know their names. Well, guess what? When they stand in front of him, the names are on the back of the jersey, so he can see them pretty clearly who it is. So, no, absolutely. You get him in. You play him 100%.
Frank, let's stick with Chelsea and actually your old position. Antonio Rudiger looks to be on his way out. Of all the center halves that Chelsea had, is that the player that you'd be moving on from if you were Lampard?
It's a hard choice for Frank because, yes, Thiago Silva is coming in and he has like 4 or 5, five centre halves, so he has to make a choice and make sure that one of them will go. It's very strange because I read in an article that, according to Sky, that Rudiger has been offered in last April, 3 more years where his contract is normally ending in 2022. So he would have gone until 2025, and now they want to get rid of him. Very strange. But at the same time, I read also that Paris Saint-Germain, maybe Rome, or maybe Barcelona will be interested about getting Rudiger. Rudiger is a good defender. He had some issues, technically to put the ball out, to give good balls to midfielders, make some silly mistakes. Got a lot injured as well since he signed in 2017. So it's a choice from Lampard. I mean, keeping Tomori, maybe putting him on loan. He's young, and that can justify, his choice. Where Rudiger is going to be 28, and showed that maybe he was at the max. And Chelsea needs a bigger, stronger centre half. So Kurt Zouma seems to be the other choice with Thiago Silva. Christensen showed he was good the first game before being sent off. So sometimes you have to bet on some players, and some others you have to let them go. And I'm sure Rudiger wouldn't accept as a German international to be not even on the bench at Stamford Bridge every time they play.
Stevie, it seems like every time we talk Chelsea on this show, the one weakness that we point to is center half. Is Rudiger a player that you'd get rid of?
Well, if you're not going to play him, with the experience he has, he's not going to be a happy camper. And I was going to say, not happy sitting on the bench. He's not even sitting on the bench. So, listen, the ideal scenario would be to sell him and get a good price for him. If you can't do that, then get him out on loan. That's what they're talking about, getting him out on loan. And I would, certainly as a coach, I would prefer to have a guy who's not happy, not in the building. And even sending him out on loan, they'll get money. They'll get him off the wage bill, and they might get a few million for the period of the loan. And then guess what? You never know. He might do really well wherever he goes, and maybe that'll bump his price up if eventually they can sell him. But to have an experienced guy like that kicking around the dressing room, kicking around the stadium, not involved, it's a bad situation for everybody all round. So regardless of how it is, whether it's a transfer or a loan, he'd be better off not there, because quite clearly Frank's not playing him. Frank doesn't rate him any higher than the rest of the players he has. So I think having him around the place would maybe. I know the guy's supposed to be a real good pro, but you know what? I don't care who you are. When you're sitting kicking your heels, all that frustration builds up. So he's better off not there.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chelsea back in action on the weekend. They'll take on West Brom as we take a look at the Premier League schedule. Will Rudiger be in the 18? Will Mendy be in goal? Those questions still to be answered. Busy day Thursday in the Europa League. Celtic and Rangers both able to advance, as does AC Milan. Spurs as well. A couple late goals help them get the job done. A reminder, if you ever missed an episode of the show, you can always download the podcast over on the website. Included in the podcast, of course, Extra Time, where today we got into some pretty sticky stuff. There's some